So we found our SkyZone Forms app on our home screen right here. You can also put it down in the taskbar if you'd like for easier access. And to open it and log in, just go ahead and click the icon for it. And it's going to ask you for username and password. You just enter that information in there. And then once you are done, you're ready to enter the Forms app, and it will, once it logs in, default to your home page where you have all your different options in terms of reports. So we're going to start by looking at our pre-opening checklist, which we use before we open the park. Before we do that, we want to take a step back and talk about why we use this Forms app and why we use it consistently and what it does for us. By submitting all the reports when we are supposed to and when we are required to, it keeps a digital log of every single report we've done. It's automatically filed for us. And in terms of risk management and risk mitigation, it's a running log of what we've done to make sure that we are reducing risk and managing safety in our parks. So by using the Forms app, we're making it really easy on ourselves in case we have to show what we've done to mitigate risk in our facilities. So let's jump into this pre-opening checklist by just clicking pre-opening checklist. The first thing you're going to have to do is select a location. You'll have a much shorter list that'll be just your location. For example, today I'm just going to use Arvada. Then we want to put in the person completing the report. That will be the manager on duty. For the example's sake, I'm going to put in my name here, and it creates that accountability of who filled out the report. From there, we go through and we see our different categories we have and our options to select and check them off. The check indicates that you have checked that and that it is working. You also have notes. So if you had one POS station down, you could click here and say station 1 broken or malfunctioning or running slow or something along those lines. So in every section you do have a space for notes. As you go through and you are ready to submit the report, this one is incomplete and I'm going to leave it that way to demonstrate. If I hit review, you'll see that it says not all required fields have been filled out correctly. Please complete them, and then it will highlight the fields that are missing. I could go through and complete this, however I don't want to put in a false report for Arvada, and I'm therefore going to leave it as is. But once you check all the boxes and hit review, we'll then give you the option to submit, and then your report is saved, and you can access that by going to forms.skyzone.com using the same login for the app, and you'll see on the left-hand side a sidebar where you can access that report. Now we're going to take a look at the full inspection checklist, and this is what we use to inspect our courts. We do this 2 times a week per court. The cadence of that is up to you. We do have a recommended schedule of on Mondays and Thursdays, so just after the busy weekend and right before we go into a busy weekend. If you want to vary that, you can do that, but again, we do this 2 times a week per court. We go ahead and enter the full inspection checklist by clicking there. Again, you select a location. We used Arvada last time, so we'll use that again. And then you go ahead here and enter in the name of the court. Most of our court have individual names like Freestyle or SkySlam. In certain cases like Dodgeball, you will have to enter the number of the court. So Dodgeball 2. So we've put in the name of the court here as Dodgeball 2, and we've put in the name of the person completing the report as Jacob Rothbaum. Now as we go through the report, we see we have different sections here, and then we have check boxes for each item in those sections. So as you're going through inspecting this, the trampoline beds on Dodgeball 2, you're looking for rips, holes, or runs. You're checking that the Velcro skirts are attached, and you're checking that the trampoline beds are clean. And as we verify those, we can check off those boxes. Then as we go into the court pads, we're looking for movement in the pads, so we're giving them a shake and seeing if they move within the tolerance. We're checking the tie downs and straps to make sure they're tight and secure. We're making sure that the Velcro, again, is in place on the pads as well. And as we go through and check these off, that's indicating that we did inspect that. If we find any issues, for example, if we come down here to court structures and we check the springs and we find that a few springs on the back wall were a little bit loose, we can come in to our comments section and note that we had to replace 2 springs on wall trampoline. Now, the more specific that we can be here, the better. We do recommend that you have a court map that in some way indicates what each trampoline is on the court. So if you can reference that here, so if you could say replaced 2 springs on wall trampoline 2A, that indicates specifically which wall trampoline it is, that helps you know what you've been fixing, as well as helps in the future in case there were any issues. Again, similar to the last report, when you hit review, it will tell you if you filled out all the required fields. If you have, you can go ahead and hit submit. It saves that forms.skyzone.com for future reference. Let's take a look at the Manager on Duty walkthrough report. This is a report that every manager on duty should complete at least once per shift. So if there are, in one Saturday, if there are 2 MODs that have different shifts, then they should each complete this once, so that would be 2 MOD walkthroughs for that day. So we access that by clicking right here on MOD walkthrough. Again, we're going to select location. We'll stick with Arvada as our sample, and then put in the MOD for that time again. As we go through here, this is simply a checklist of things that we need to verify are still functioning or that are in place, that we know that we have checked. Again, this is one of those risk management items where we're saying yes, at least once per shift, we make sure our video system is functioning. We make sure that we're capturing all the court areas. We check our first aid kit and AED to make sure they're doing well. And we go through this entire checklist. If there's anything missing or anything that we needed to change, we can go into our comments/action plan and note what action we took or what adjustments we had to make along the way. Again, it keeps a running record for ourselves, for future reference, and for even as a reminder to communicate to the next MOD as they're coming on shift. Again, when you're complete, you hit review. If you have completed all the items, you can hit submit, and it saves in that forms.skyzone.com. Okay, so the final thing we're going to look at here today is the incident and accident report. This is what we fill out anytime that a guest is injured, and we access that by clicking right here. And what we're going to start with is the information of the injured party or the person that was in the incident or accident, last name, first name, and their age. I'm going to get all this information all the way down here, and then we get into the actual incident information itself. We're going to select the date and time. It will default to the current date and current time. Generally, we're going to be filling this out a few moments after the actual incident, so we may need to roll this back a little bit. Having an accurate time from your court monitor, who should note that as soon as the injury occurs, helps when you go back and have to pull video for this incident. But more accurate the time is the actual incident, the more efficient it will be to pull that video. We also include the court monitor respond as well as the accident site. This is the court on which it occurred or the area in the park. As you see, we have concessions area, restroom, and a spectator area. If it occurred on one of our innovations, we ask that you go to other, and then it will open up this text box down here where you can enter, for instance, Warrior Course. You also need to select the activity that the person was doing. Were they running, were they jumping only, or was it, again, other, and you can enter that in a text box as well. And then you want to select the landing location. Did they land on the pads? Did they land on the trampoline rip and they went through it? Were they in the foam zone? All these types of incident areas. That's very important for us because we can look back and see if there are any problem areas that are causing more injuries in terms of landing site. Then you want to put in notes here as to describe what happened and the extent of the injury. Be sure that here is just facts, no opinions or conjecture. We want to make sure that we include just the facts of what we observed here. Then we want to answer honestly for these next questions that are yes/no options. Was first aid given? Was ice provided? Emergency assistance called? Did the guest refuse treatment? We want to enter in the name of the doctor and facility if we can, and under whose care did the injured person leave. We select the caretaker. It could be a friend, EMT, parent, relative, or they could have left on their own. We also want to make sure we have the result of the injury. This is our injury levels. Did they continue jumping? Were they not able to return to jumping and left under their own power? Or did they require hospitalization or EMS? We also can look at other contributing factors, other guests, did they run into someone? Were they specifically violating a rule? Anything along those lines. And then finally, your location, you select your insured and policy number will be populated, and then you put in the name of the person filling out the report and select their title from this list as to what their role is in the park. Once you have filled out everything and hit review, it will not give you this warning. It will say, are you ready to submit? When you hit submit, it will be accessible in forms.skyzone.com, where you can complete the report with video, as well as the waiver of the injured party and any witness statements that were collected as well.